Hey there, congratulations on finding our channel and welcome to the Daily Space Weather. Sorry, alarmists, the world still isn't ending. You got to check out our forum. Also, filaments erupting and lots more still to talk about despite only 2 sunspot groups and generally weak solar activity. So there's a sunspot up here and there's a sunspot down here. They're both alpha class. The likelihood of major solar flares is low. We did see some coronal ejecta as well. We'll get to it. First, here's a 211 angstroms view. I would also note there is a significant South Pole-oriented coronal hole over in this area right here. It's actually trans-equatorial. Some of the feature of that has been exposed as there's been a bit of eruptive activity out here. We don't see a coronal mass ejection associated with that yet. There is also a filament outburst up here. We'll show you more on that in a moment. First, head to our forum, smAsho.com/forum, and check out our solar events logger if you haven't. Feel free to add your own favorite solar events, as we made a little GIF animation last night of this northwesterly limb filament activity. And thanks to whoever that was who commented on Facebook. I had already made the GIF animation by the time you left the comment. Anyway, welcome to the New York Renaissance, folks. Visit smAsho.com. smAsho.org will redirect you. You can find our social media links there. And today's featured product is available at the smAsho merch shop. If you click on smAsho merch, you'll be directed to this page. Today's featured product is the My Vaccination Status is None of Your Business shirt in orange. And I'll model it for you right here. It says HIPAA. My vaccination status is none of your business. Yes, it's true, folks. It's true. So here we've got the 304 angstroms animation here, and you can see some filaments down here. You can see this eruptive behavior right here, which looks like a coronal mass ejection that has remained around the sun. It does not appear to have ejected. And this one up here, you can also see some additional filaments here, and the coronal mass ejection watch has not evaporated. It's just looking like it's going to be minor, and we're not going to really harp on it too much. Anyway, we'll rock this back here, and I'll zoom in on this a little bit so you can see this filamentary behavior up here. And also this stuff going on down here. And the SDO browse data is great in that you can rock the slider back and forth. And you can also pause. You can see that filament coming right out of that sunspot there. And then looking like it just collapses back around the southeastern limb there. No coronal mass ejection noted from this. If so, it was pretty minor. And really the only one that we saw was coming out of this. And it looks like it's headed to the northwest. We're not even going to really show any images of it. And we're going to move on in a minute. First, thanks to our patrons, the true source of funding for the content, patreon.com/smAshomash. If you'd like all kinds of early alerts nobody else gets, as well as all kinds of astrophysics, heliophysics, cosmology, and other stuff that nobody else gets to see, many tiers are available there at patreon.com/smAshomash. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Here's a photo of El Sol from just yesterday. Next, a diagram of the solar system. There's where stuff is now. We'll advance this 1 week. And there's where things will be in a week, as Earth slowly moves past Saturn and Jupiter as they dominate the night sky. And if you're up before dawn, you may see Jupiter, Saturn, and the Moon up there near the ecliptic. It's the yellow line that I've drawn in. This is in-the-sky.org, by the way. This is the all-star chart, all-sky chart, rather. Feel free to draw in your own if you like. Put in your location. You can even advance this as Cygnus circles Polaris over and over again all summer long. Continuing on, Check it out. Is it a UFO? I think it's actually a cloud, folks. You may see this one all over the newswire today. This is from a Zero Hedge article. Unidentified aerial phenomenon sighting in South Carolina stirs MUFON interest. And sorry, folks, it looks like a cloud to me. There's a large cumulonimbus cloud in the background, and we often get rotational eddies of air around those. And from the way this thing behaves, it certainly looks to me like it is a cloud. Again, you can see the sky is largely empty there. And in the background, you can see a large cumulonimbus cloud. And here's a good close-up of it, but you often see these sorts of cloud motions here swirling around the base of a cumulonimbus cloud. That is a cloud. So anyway, your job of being a scientist is to be a skeptic, folks. Don't believe everything you see on YouTube, as there is, let's just say, a plethora of nonsense. The sun definitely emits a radio flux of the 10.7 centimeter variety. That radio flux is only at 81 right now, having dropped back down again here, as we see sunspots degrading on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk, low levels of solar activity in general. I would also note that we saw a double peak here in cycle 23 and cycle 24. Do you think we'll see another double peak in cycle 25? My answer is no. I say we won't. And I believe the grand solar minimum occurred right here, if you're wondering. The thermosphere was colder than it was here, and the cosmic ray flux was higher than it was in 2018, 2019. Anyway, there's the radio flux graph, and there are the last 3 solar cycles, 22, 23, and 24, going back into the 1980s there. Seismicity has been a little bit higher in the past few days, but over the past 90 days, it's been quite low, only 1.7 magnitude earthquake. Let's check the list. A little swarm here at Alaska, but pretty low levels of seismicity. So the largest quake of the past 24 was this 6.2 at Indonesia. Not sure if a tsunami was generated. Let's check. We see no warnings, advisories, watches, or threats currently. And indeed, there were no tsunamis associated with that quake. It was originally reported as a 6.6, by the way, downgraded to a 6.2. So Fiji saw a deep quake there at over 560 kilometers at a 4.5 magnitude. Another 4.5 occurring quite far away there, east of Japan, in Kurilsk, Russia, near the Kuril Islands. Here's another deep quake, this one happening at Russia, on the Kamchatka Peninsula, it looks like. That 5.0 magnitude at over 139 kilometers estimated depth. South of the Fiji Islands, there was a deep quake at over 600 kilometers depth. And leave us a comment if you have theories as to the physics of earthquakes. It's really not understood. Small deep quake struck western South America as well. Also the Mona Passage, Caribbean, a regular spot for deep quakes. Another deep quake at Fiji. And continuing on, low seismicity here as the earthquake drought continues. Pretty high volcanism, though. So some volcanic news here. Mount Etna once again exploding. Karimsky on the Kamchatka Peninsula having produced some significant eruptions here and a 12,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Shivaluch. The theory is that the dome may have collapsed. The Dolphin 2 dome may have collapsed as there's been a strong steam and gas plume emission, a 14,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Webcam videos are not yet available. So chances are the extruded lava dome is being destroyed. Suwanosejima, flight level 070, it's producing a 7,000-foot ash plume. And some news on the White Island volcano of New Zealand. So infrared radiation measurement flights reported hot gas, very hot gas, 498 to 654 degrees Celsius being emitted from some of the vents from the 2019 lava extrusion. And elevated levels of gas emissions continue, but the ratio of carbon dioxide to sulfur dioxide has decreased. Persistent observations of a night glow on the web cameras indicate continued emissions of high-temperature gases. The seismic activity, including volcanic tremor, has remained at low levels generally. Sangay exploding, producing a 20,000-foot ash plume over Ecuador, and Sabancaya similarly exploding, 24,000-foot ash plume over Peru. A great reminder to not pole vault the caldera. Now, we don't encourage our viewers to do stupid things or believe nonsense on the internet. And our anti-nonsense broadcasts are brought to you at massive personal risk and expense by smAsho.com. So visit our links, support the channel, etc. Tell your friends and foes about the content. No major solar flares over the past 3 days. There are the X-ray frequency photonic emissions from the closest star. No spikes in the proton flux either. No coronal mass ejections have been headed Earth's way. We would have let you know before they even left the solar corona, had they had. And here is the ghost magnetometer over the past 3 days. Earth is now in a South Pole current sheet and could suddenly snap across into a North Pole current sheet once again. Let's take a look at the visualization of that. Here's the Gong 2 data. And you can see on the last image here, Earth is right in the middle of a South Pole-oriented current sheet shown here in red. Just keep in mind the magnetic environment can suddenly change, and with basically no warning, except perhaps from our channel. This data 2 hours and 7 minutes old at the time of the recording of this video. Here's a line of sight field plot, and we do see a helmet streamer forming here, this little round blue area. And there is a coronal hole up there as well. The next slide will show you that. This also shows you the solar magnetogram, great three-dimensional view of the current sheet, and the turbulence currently east of Earth. You can see that blue line swinging around there. That is the indecision of solar magnetism regarding the current sheet polarity. Here's the line of sight coronal hole plot, and you can see this South Pole-oriented coronal hole stretching well up over the equator. And also you can see North Pole-oriented coronal hole activity here stretching down toward that. This is what we would expect to see in a terminator event. If you're not familiar with that, it's when the sun suddenly goes into a hyperactive state. And by the way, this figures into the physics of our explanation of the solar polar field cycles. So the solar polar field reversal cycles are what we believe to be in charge of the sunspot cycles. So throughout each solar cycle, folks, the fields just reverse, and coronal holes kind of migrate down across the equator, and then next thing you know, the fields are reversed. What we're seeing here is the possibility that these fields are either canceling each other out or perhaps amplifying each other. There is a thin line between one and the other. And for those of you who understand wave physics, it's probably making perfect sense to you what a terminator event is. But in any case, it's associated with solar magnetism, and we could be seeing some of this happening. We saw it actually, the last series of coronal holes also did something similar to this. They both stretched over the equator, and then they basically were very undefined coronal holes. So anyway, a little bit of information about the solar cycle, solar polar field progression cycle and sunspot cycle and so on. Again, likelihood of solar flares is actually quite low here. These sunspots are beta-class sunspots, or about to be beta-class sunspots. I don't know how they're getting any... they're alpha-class sunspots. I don't see how they're getting any beta-class sunspot on that. They appear to be all very simple sunspots, unlikely to produce major flares. Planetary K-index, a measurement of global geomagnetism, quite weak here over the past 3 days here, only being at a KP of 1 or 0. Each one of those bars represents 3 hours, by the way. And the real-time solar wind also fairly uninteresting. Solar wind density a little bit elevated here to 12.05 protons per cubic centimeter. solar wind speed only 318 kilometers per second. This could be the leading edge of a weak coronal hole wind stream. It certainly looks like it, as we saw a phi angle and a BTBZ shift at the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the density drop down and the speed go up a tiny bit here. That's my official guess. Here's the Geospace Magnetosphere movie showing 4 hours of data of magnetohydrodynamic pressure surrounding planet Earth. We can expect to see the pressure go up here a little bit at the end, as there was a little increase in solar wind density there. And there you see that happening. Again, 4 hours of data there from University of Michigan. Here are ground magnetic perturbations. Since there is indeed a polar excursion going on, which should not frighten you really in any way. It's so not scary. So not scary. Anyway, here's 4 hours of geospace delta B changes to Earth B field. And we see some over the Canadian North Pole as well as the South Geomagnetic Pole. Not a lot else happening in those 4 hours of data. And I would remind our viewers to press like and subscribe. The video can't continue until you do so. So it's okay. We'll just wait. Have you pressed like and subscribe? Seriously, I'm just kidding, folks. If you enjoy the content, press like and subscribe. We need your help to get the content out there, as the algorithms are less than favorable to our channel. We are approaching 2,000 subscribers, though. If you've got theories about what we should do for our 2,000 subscriber special, leave us a comment. We are also on BitChute, bitchute.com/smAsho. We do regularly stream live to Twitch, and we're about to do it for our cosmology segment, so make sure you check that out. It'll be a separate video today. Twitch.tv/smAsho is the URL for our Twitch channel. And let's take a look at the electrons surrounding planet Earth. They do have the capacity to charge satellites. They currently aren't doing so. We did see a little higher levels yesterday, as I sort of forecasted here. Anyway, there's a one-year chart from Solon.info of the relativistic electrons surrounding planet Earth. They're moving at relativistic speeds, meaning a significant percentage of light speed. And here's a 3-day chart of it. And we almost got to warning levels there yesterday. What's your theory on the forecast for the electron flux? Here's NOAA's. NOAA calling for relatively flat levels here. The yellow diamonds are the observation and the green boxes are the forecast. No argument for me on this one, especially if there is indeed a coronal hole wind stream arriving, as it will lower the amount of electrons out there. It's like what you would call proton light. Anyway, there's a diagram of Earth's Van Allen belts. Distances are shown in miles. Here's a total electron content forecast, showing you electron density through the entire air column, the likelihood of GPS errors. The redder those blobs get, the more electrons are there. The more likely your GPS is to show you massive errors. And we see some around Antarctica once again, south of the Indian Ocean. I'll let it play through a second time here, as this electron flux gives us insight into Earth's magnetic fields. And it's why we show the certain data points that we do, because nobody else does it or has any idea how they relate to each other, it seems. Here's another diagram of the atmosphere. This one's showing thermosphere temperature, electromagnetic radiation penetration, molecular content, as well as layers of the ionosphere. We're going to be focusing on the F layer, one slice around 300 kilometers. And we're seeing anomalies once again here over the Central Pacific Ocean, especially west of South America, and some minor ones over the southern Indian Ocean as well, lining up with the electron flux anomalies this time. And the ionosphere is largely the bridge between Earth and space. There's lots of chemistry going on up there, and it's causing a lot of vibrations to happen. Here's the latest image from 845, and each one of those blobs there for you new viewers represents 1 megahertz, 1 million vibrations of vibrational frequency in those zones. So here's an F layer, here's an F2 layer, here's an F3 layer, here's an F4 layer, and so on. And space weather viewers, make sure you check out our meteorology segments. Another one today with some interesting climate stories. Let's do our bonus features. So here is the hydrogen alpha imagery from the ground-based observatory at Alarmists, and we're actually seeing some filamentary activity here. Coronal mass ejection watch continues, folks. There are lots of filaments out here. You can see this one looking like it's ready to destabilize at any moment. Also, prominence is up here. Some great views there in hydrogen alpha from the Alarmists, Australia ground-based solar observatory, part of the National Sunspot Observatory. Here's the NASA GOES 16 SUVI map, and look at all those reddish-orange regions there. Those are all filaments. Those could eject. We don't need large sunspots or solar flares to see coronal mass ejections, as our regular viewers would be well aware. And for our irregular viewers, once again, congratulations on realizing our channel exists. Here's the latest intensity gram to show some vanishing sunspots. Those might lose their names entirely. If I had to guess, I'd say we're going to be back down to 0 sunspots today, folks. There's the latest magnetogram, and those sunspots are evaporating quite quickly there. And the main feature to watch is right over here, the coronal hole situation, where we've got 2 transequatorial coronal holes, one from the north and one from the south. And last but not least, a composite image here from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. This is ionized helium and 2 spectral states of iron. We'll zoom in a little bit here now that we've showed the time and date stamps of that run. And thanks again for tuning in to the Daily Space Weather. Don't forget to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Tell your friends and foes, science noobs and science pros about the channel. And may that solar wind be at your back.